Morning. Grumpy Farmer here, or Andy, whichever. For those of you who might be new, I'm Andy Dennison. This is Dennison Farms. I'm the Grumpy Farmer, as my wife and daughter like to put it. And there's our faithful companion buddy. It is Saturday, January 20th. I got a calendar here because y'all know how much I suck on dates. It is January 25th. Today's video is going to be a little different. There's not going to be any farming going on. It's raining like hell out. In my last video, you watched me plowing snow when we were getting a snowstorm and about a foot of snow. Now it's pouring rain. So that snow is going to be a mess that's left. But today's video, I'm going to interview my father. Now, I hope everybody sticks around now that I've said that and watches it. My dad was born in 1932. So I want to do a video of someone's perspective from farming growing up, coming out of the Great Depression, being a teenager through World War II, and then starting his farming career. Oh, I'm gonna sit down. So that's what today's video is gonna be, and I think it's gonna be pretty neat. Now, I'm doing it for two reasons. One, so I can have that video for the rest of my life. And two, my uncle passed away, my dad's brother, here back, we buried him 3 or 4 days before Christmas. And they farmed together. And then they went on their own and each got their own farms. And when I was over there going through old pictures with my cousins, my uncle's 3 sons, it was just neat seeing the things we found. And I'm going to show you a few of those things at the end of this video so that we don't make it super long. So I'll ask you to subscribe because it doesn't cost you anything. I hope you like this. I definitely want you to comment, and I try to reply to everyone's comments. I think it's going to be neat. Take in mind, his memory's not always going to be the best, but let's see what he thinks of farming back then through farming today in 2020. So stay tuned and let's see what happens.
You ready?
Yep. All right, I'm sitting here with my father, Charles Dennison. We're going to get an idea of what it was like to grow up in the 1930s and be a teenager in the 40s, coming out of the Depression and living through World War II on the farm, and what he thinks of farming today versus back then. So what was it like growing up then?
Well, as I started to say, sitting around the old potbelly stove and oil lamp to read by, because there was till I think it was 7 years old before we had electricity. And so compared to what kids today have, we didn't have much of anything. And my dad worked off the farm some, doing carpenter work. And my brother and I done quite a lot of the barn chores, and so that my dad could be away to, and so as far as not having a heck of a lot to do, we did, but it wasn't fun and games. And so things were, especially during the war years, everything was rationed. Uh, Gas was rationed, sugar was rationed, just about everything was rationed, and for the war effort. And so it was pretty well. Uh, uh, Everything was pretty well drawn out for us, and uh, firemen. Uh, when I was old enough to help, my dad still had horses. Um, I don't remember that I done too much with the horses, but my dad did. We still had horses, and uh, my dad and my uncle Don both swapped a team of horses in for a John Deere B tractor. I don't remember the exact year of that. It, so basically, when I started doing things on the farm, I was working with a tractor. I, I, I don't ever remember doing anything with the horses. My dad still did, but I didn't. But uh, it, it was uh, pretty well drawed up for what we was doing, and uh, didn't have a lot of fun and games, and so it's a lot different than it is today.
So when we were over, and just so everyone knows, my dad's brother, my uncle Lyle, passed away back before Christmas. I think we buried him 3 or 4 days before Christmas. I was over there with my cousins, my uncle's sons, and we were going through old pictures and stuff like that. And it was amazing the things that we found, not just picture wise, but price wise of things back in those days. So when you were out of school and you basically went to farming yourself, what did you pay for your first farm, and how much was it, or how many acres and all that?
Well, the first farm was on the side of the road that you live, 113 acres, and when that when we bought that farm, my dad basically bought the farm because the house had been burnt. And so uh, the idea was, when my dad bought it, that we would fix it up, and then he would sell it to Lorraine and I
That's my mother.
for what it cost to fix it. So we ended up paying a little over $10,000 for that 113 acres.
So $10,000 for 113 acres. The original part of the house where I live now, which we've added on to, was the shed there?
No.
So the shed wasn't there. So it was just the old corn crib, the house, and the very first section of the dairy barn, which housed, what, like 22 stalls? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, something like that. All right, so when did you buy this farm? The home farm is about 405 total acres, and there's 3 parcels. So that was your first parcel, around 113 acres. When did you buy the second parcel? Was that the Dennison Road farm, Grandpa's old place?
Gosh, I can't remember which I bought first.
Well, there was about 95 acres on Dennison Road. Do you remember what you paid for that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't remember.
And then there's a just shy of 200 acres, around 195 acres right here on this side of the road that you bought from Uncle Don. When did you buy that?
Oh gosh, Andy, I can't remember the exact date.
Well, roughly. What year?
Uh,
You built the new house here that you're in 1969
yeah,
because I was born.
yeah. We moved in 1970. So it was 67 or 68. We bought that farm, and I paid. It's kind of laughable. I paid $22,000 for it, and Parm Titus was, I think, one of the assessors at the time. And Bob Townsend basically wanted that farm. And they said, oh boy, I paid way too much for that farm. But I end up selling the house and 20 acres for $15,000. So basically, I bought a 200-acre farm for, what would it be, $7,000
Yeah.
in that neighborhood?
So basically, the entire 405-acre farm, roughly, you probably paid less than $40,000 for
Oh,
the
yes,
entire thing.
yes, yes.
And just for reference, my wife and I have bought 250 acres or so in the last 10 or 12 years, and we've paid close to 500,000, 485,000. But one of those farms had a house on it that we sold for 85,000, so we paid about 400,000 for. So there's a huge difference between farming then and now.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember, but you guys always saved everything. And one time down cellar, we took out a box from 1971 from you and 1991 from me, and we put it on the bar and we compared prices. You probably don't remember doing that.
no,
Well, you were paying 25, 30 cents for a gallon of gas. Your electric bill was, I don't know, $120 a month. Mine was $1,200, $1,300 a month. It was crazy as to what the price differences were.
yeah, yeah.
So,
really.
so what was your first big tractor that you would consider your first big tractor?
That would be, I think, a John Deere 3010.
So that was your first big horsepower tractor.
Yes, I think it was.
Oh,
And we thought that was a big tractor
yep.
for them times.
And one of the pictures, I'll see if I can do this, that we found when we were looking through pictures for Uncle Lyle's funeral was, and I'm going to put it in front of the camera here, if I can get the camera to cooperate. This is a picture of a 1961, I think you said it was, Ford 6000. That's the salesman on the left, you in the center, and your brother, my Uncle Lyle, on the right. And that salesman was your ag teacher, right?
Yeah, in school.
Yep. And then you traded that tractor in for, what was it, 22510s?
Yeah. That's what Ronnie said. I don't remember.
Yeah,
that.
we dug up a bill of sale from like 1963 or something, where you each got half the money for the Ford and then traded it in for those John Deeres. So when did you and Uncle Lyle go out on your own? Because you farmed together for a while, and then you each got your own farm.
Boy, I can't tell you, Andy, when we basically split up. We had maybe to help on the year. we were still farming together when we bought a 4010 or a 4020. Which was it?
Well, you both had the two 4020s. They were like a 67 and a 68.
I, I, I think we were still farming when we had the two tractors, but we split up, and we didn't split up because it was a problem. We basically split up because uh, Uncle Lyle had bought that farm over there on 370. I don't know. Do you remember the acreage on that? But anyways,
Not really.
and I had bought this farm from Uncle Don, and we was basically getting a pretty good size each one of us, and it was better to go out on our own.
Yep.
It was like planting crops, you know, which who plants first, and there was quite a lot more acreage than when we first started as partners. So that was the main reason that we split up. And as I say, there was
Yeah, because planting 100 acres back then is probably the equivalent to us planting 500 to 700 acres today when you figure the equipment, with what you were working with compared to what we work with today.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So
so what, your first ever four-wheel drive tractor, that's when you and I were in a partnership, that 1989 John Deere 4455, right?
I think that was the first four-wheel drive tractor that we had.
So before that, when it was muddy, you guys just hooked a bunch together.
And that was by far the biggest tractor that we ever
Yep.
owned. And
So when you had muddy conditions, chopping corn and all that, you just hooked a bunch of two-wheel drives together and prayed you could get through it.
right, right. I can remember we had what was the name of that corn picker that we had back then in them days? That was mounted on a 3010 tractor.
Was it a new idea?
Yeah, new idea. Corn picker, and we mounted it on a 4010 with a single front tire, and of course that made it worse because it sunk in the mud so
Yep.
much easier. But we would run a chain out from the front of that 3010 tractor with the corn picker on it, and I think we had a 4010 or something at that time, and I can remember picking a lot of corn. Lyle and I were still together at that time, and towing that corn picker around, and we picked a lot of corn doing that. And but
Well, you obviously remember the introduction of hybrid seed corn then.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, back then, today we get 180, 200 bushel corn fairly easily. What was a big yield back in those days when you were running that old picker?
oh gosh, I don't know if you got 100 bushel to the acre
Yeah.
back then.
Well, that's the reason why you spoke earlier of the rationing of food and all that when you were growing up. I mean, today's modern farming, there is no, this is why we produce the food and fiber and fuel that we do, because of technology. And we've been through wars just like you have back in World War II, but you don't see any shortages of food during those times. So what amazes you the most today watching me farm compared to when you farmed?
Oh, the amount of work you can get done in a day, And the amount of money that the crops, the fertilizer and the seed,
Yeah.
the amount of money that it costs.
Yeah, considering right now corn is about 380 a bushel, and that's not a whole lot different than what it was 50 years ago.
Right, right. And that's why you farmers today have to do 10 times more than what we did back then. And
I know you've said in the past that, like this one little field outside your window here, it's 11 acres, and it takes me about, well, I don't know, we had beans on it this year, and I think it took me not even an hour to combine it. How long would that have taken you guys to harvest an 11-acre field back in the 50s, let's say?
God, oh,
More than a day, I'm assuming.
yes, yes. Geez, Lyle and I were still farming together when we bought that. What's that? Uh, I just can't think of the name of that combine that we bought together. They still make them.
An old gleaner?
Yes, an old gleaner, and basically 2 row, I think it was, and that was our first move into what we call the modern day farming, and but it wasn't a 4-wheel drive or anything, so basically you kind of had to wait for the weather to cooperate to
Yeah.
use that.
So do we today, even with our 4-wheel drives.
So,
But
but it's just amazing how what you have to pay for equipment today compared to what we had to pay.
yeah, like my 2016 John Deere S Series combine that cost $375,000, and that's a small one.
Yeah,
Some of the bigger ones cost $500,000, and then
Yeah.
it depends on all the bells and whistles. It can cost even more.
just it 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 it's just mind-boggling to me the money that farmers have got invested today, and I suppose probably when we bought those 4020s years ago, what was it, 67?
Yeah, 67, 68.
That we thought they probably was such a tremendous price
Yeah.
to pay for. It just shows how much difference there is in.
Which, by the way, people, I used that 4020 right up until 2012, I think it was, when I traded it in on that 5115M. Because our 4020 was a loader tractor, and I traded it in for this newer loader tractor. And you still see a lot of those older 3020s, 4020s around.
Well, wasn't the 4020 the biggest selling
At that time, yes.
tractor?
Yes, and I got more in trade for it than what you paid for it, because I remember you and I talking about that when I traded it in,
Yeah.
because they've still held their value so much.
Yes.
So
Seems so. I bought that tractor, that 4020, when Johnny Melvin had his dealership in Red Creek, and he was going belly up. And the reason I bought it, because if I remember right, it was only $7,000 that
Yeah.
I paid for that.
yeah, and I got, oh God, it was almost right around $8,000 when I traded it in, and it was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
So
And,
now another thing we found, which I'm going to try and show people here, is when we were going through pictures and stuff when Uncle Lyle passed. You sold your Jersey herd in 1958 to go to Holsteins. Now, I milked cows for 25 years here before I sold them in 2011 just to do the crops, and I've been to plenty of cattle auctions, and I've never seen a elaborate cattle book like this one was. And the guy was from Ohio that you had come out and sell the cows, because he was, as you put it, a highfalutin auctioneer for Jersey cattle.
Yeah. I started out with Jersey cattle because my dad had Jersey cattle, and when basically I left the farm and started on our own here after Lorraine and I got married, as I say, my dad done that as a you might say a gift to us. He charged us what we put in the house. We done a lot of the work ourselves, and we hired an old guy from Meridian, I can't remember his name, as a carpenter. And we remodeled that house over there, and when we got it remodeled and we got married in 1953, and I think I had 20 head of Jersey cattle that I had acquired, and we had some pretty good Jersey cattle. We had some that.
Yep, I'm going to hold the book up and show people some of the inside of the book. This is how elaborate it was. And they wrote in pencil up there, like, that cow brought $260. This is 1958. And look at how elaborate this book is. Now, any cattle auction that I went to when I was milking cows, you got, I don't know, maybe 3 8x11 pieces of white paper stapled together that said the cow's number, when she was born, and when she last calved. I mean, this was pretty elaborate for those days.
Well, the reason that I done that is when my dad, and I can't remember exactly where, but when we sold the milk from the farm, the Jersey high test milk, this is comical. Back then, they was paying a premium for high test milk.
Yep.
And today they pay a premium for 2%,
Yep.
0%. But anyways, they started taking the premiums away because people started not wanting high test anymore. So, as I said, we had a pretty good, we used to go to the state fair and show our cattle, and we come up some pretty good competition, and we done pretty well. So we had some pretty good Jersey cattle, and it was getting to the point where people are not going to buy Jersey cattle because milk companies are not paying a premium anymore.
So basically you got out while the getting was good.
That's exactly what I did. And the reason I hired this guy is because he had a following of high-powered Jersey cattle, which we had some pretty decent ones. And I figured that it would pay me well to hire this guy. And if I remember correctly, it did. I made out all right.
Well, when you look at some of those prices, like Ronnie and I were talking, you got $80 to $90 for a calf. There was times when we were milking cows, we weren't getting that much money selling a calf. So.
And I got $400 and some for cows.
Yep.
And
well, 260 just for that one I showed there is probably the equivalent of a $1,400 cow today. So.
And I had, a lot of people don't know this, but my memory's bad. But anyways, I had a bunch of Holstein bred heifers in the back pasture the day of the auction, and so I was pretty much heading back. I wasn't getting out of the business. I was just getting out of
Switching to Holsteins.
switching to Holsteins,
Yep.
and
So you were prepared and ready.
yep, and so that's how I got into Holsteins and why I done what I did, and so we went from Jerseys to Holsteins in one day.
So here's my question, because I'm going to end this pretty soon, so it's not too long. Did you ever think, back when you were farming, that you would see today's generation with tractors that do auto steer and all this GPS stuff and satellite stuff that's going on?
I never, ever, ever would have dreamed that I've always said, as I stated when we started here, I think I was 6, 7 years old when we got electricity on the farm. And I wonder if any other generation will see that the absolute fancy changes in what you've done and what you do, and it's just
Probably not. That's why they basically call you guys in your generation the greatest generation, because you've
yeah. And
I mean, we will continue to see technology, but I don't think we're going to see the technology advances that you guys have seen
right,
from the 1930s through the 2020.
putting men on the moon and
Yeah.
such things as that we never even dreamed of.
I mean, I kind of somewhat amazed at, I can remember discing with the old 4230 with the M&W turbo straight pipe on it, and you had to wear headphones because you'd lose your hearing. Today we use cab tractors for everything with radios, and so, but all right, well, thanks, Dad, for doing this. I just wanted people to get a perspective of basically what the last 80 to 90 years worth of farming has been.
Interesting.
Yep. All right, I appreciate it. All right, back in my shop. I'm done with my interview with my dad. I've had people comment saying they like watching my videos because I keep it real. I don't, edit out the bad stuff and just show the good stuff and all that. Well, to me, this was some of the really good stuff. And I'm not going to edit any of the interview with him out. Yes, there was times he'd struggle to remember things, but he's been around an awful long time. So he deserves that, to struggle a little and give him the time to remember things. It was actually kind of emotional for me a little bit, but now I get to keep this video for the rest of my life. My daughter's 16, so she can see this someday in the future and remember things and remember her grandpa. But because I never knew my grandfather, just to let you know. He died, I don't know, 7 or 8, 9 years before I was born. So all right, I hope you stay to the end. Not a lot of farming in here, but a lot of really interesting stuff. And I hope you like it. I hope you subscribe. I hope you give me the thumbs up. And we'll just go from there. Thank you.